Are you ready?
Mike Amos, who is at his beach house at Panama City Beach, and joining me, as he often does, is Coach Forrest Lee. So good morning, Mike, and good morning, Forrest.
Good morning.
And we're waiting also for Mike Amos to hook up with us on the Zoom from Brayton Beach, which is a beautiful sunrise here on the coast of Florida. And we've been there for a pretty day. I had to go down to my truck earlier, though, and it was downright cold. It was cold. Wind coming through the ocean, you know.
If I could go to the beach at any one time during the year, it would be right now. You know, I'd prefer it to be, you know, the mid to high 70s without all that humidity. So I know you're enjoying it this time of year, Mike.
Especially since I'm eating some Thomas's donuts this morning. I apologize if I sound like I've got food in my mouth.
'Cause you do.
That's why you don't want to be on Zoom. So you can consume.
That place is a local institution, isn't it? I've heard tons about it.
Oh, yeah. They open at 6 o'clock every morning. There was a crowd when I got there.
Has it been open for a long, long time? Been in business?
Since the 70s, Mr. Thomas was a good friend of mine. He had a little sandwich shop there, and then he started making donuts, and the rest is history.
There's money in donuts.
Had a fellow wanted to say hello to you. Mike, I saw Christopher.
And most of it's cash money, you know, boy, they're making a killing.
I
Good.
saw Christopher Joel Amos this past weekend at our reunion of the 1659th Movement Control Team and the 1167th Transportation Detachment out of Troy. We had a good crowd at the Barn Restaurant in Goshen this past Saturday night.
Oh, boy.
And Chris and his wife.
Were y'all the first group to go far?
Yes, sir. We were actually federally mobilized on the 12th of September, and we got our orders to go to Saudi Arabia on the 22nd of September, and we arrived on the 24th day of September in 1990, which was 30 years ago.
So y'all missed all of college football season pretty much.
And we got it secondhand, and Jody and I got married the 21st of July, so in about 2 months I was sitting in Saudi Arabia. But Chris was there, and of course our commander was Jimmy Copeland. He and Martha were there, and they were gracious enough to pick up the expense of the food.
Oh, wow.
Terry Turner, who works at the Pike County Road Department, he and his girlfriend were there. And
Let me get Michael. Let's see.
Don Jeffrey and his wife Betty were there. We had Sherman Stafford and his wife Shanice. Sherman is retired now. Wendell McLean.
You're on, Michael. Good morning.
And his wife were there, and several others.
Good morning. Mike Amos on Zoom this morning. You look awfully pretty, Mike. I'm right down the street from you, but I'm not on Zoom. But I'll be right here with you this morning. And of course, you know, we need to go meet at Sunnyside Grill for breakfast. That'd be good. Go get a big omelet with some pancakes and all that. If you want to do that, what I like is fried ham and eggs. Oh boy, that ham is big old thick slab of ham and with some fresh eggs over light with hot grits. Man, you can't beat that.
Mike, he's already got a hold of some donuts this morning.
The owner is drinking a beer while he makes your omelet. That's what I like about it. Everybody all knows football at the same time.
Yeah, that's pretty. Well, I mean, I want to go back to Forrest. How long were y'all there in total? How many months?
Well, I came back early in mid-November with an ankle injury, but they got back home sometime in March. They flew into, well, I saw them, they flew into Columbus, Georgia, and I took the day off from school, got permission from my principal, and they flew into Columbus, Georgia, and that's where the family saw them for the first time.
When did the actual fighting in Kuwait begin?
Well, actually, I believe they invaded like in August.
After y'all had come home?
No. That's the reason we mobilized.
It already started.
They started their shenanigans in August, and
y'all were reinforcements.
A lot of us were in Camp Shelby when we got mobilized, or got sent back to Troy to do some paperwork. But anyway.
You know, the sad thing about all this, and I was there to watch that send-off, and it was sad because at that time we thought those guys were scary. You know, that they had all this gas and all that stuff, and we were scared to death about for you guys when y'all left. I cried like a baby when Christopher Doyle got on that bus.
He was about 19 years old. Or 20. Greg Mobley, I think he was the youngest. He was 18 years old. They tapped him on the shoulder. He was in line at Troy University, registered for classes. You remember how we used to line up and go through the buildings? And they tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Come on, son, you've been mobilized." So he got out of line to go to the armory. And ironically, I worked for his daddy. Donnie Mobley, works at he's on the board at the Brundage Country Club. So I didn't even know Donnie and Greg were related, but Greg now, he and his family live in Huntsville. He works at Redstone, and he was unable to come.
I went to that send-off too. I think all of Troy did. It was a huge crowd. Thank goodness everybody came back safe.
I remember we had a cookout. Somebody had a cookout for us at the park there at Murphy Park, and it was a tremendous send-off at the armory. I remember I got on the bus and I saw Jody. I got back off the bus and got one more kiss.
Well, that was atypical. I mean, in my whole life, I couldn't remember a National Guard unit being mobilized to go fight a war, and now it's just commonplace.
Well, there was also a water purification unit out of North Alabama that was already on the bus waiting for us. They had picked them up earlier in the morning. But we're kind of like a support group. The movement control team, basically what we do is if you need something moved, you call us and we task trucking companies to move water, supplies, fuel, whatever for you. Or if there's a major move within a area of a war zone, we map out the plan of movement so big units won't collide at an intersection and get bogged up, so to speak. That's basically what our job is. Kind of like a taxi service. You call us, we'll get somebody to come pick you up.
Who was General then? Schwarzkopf?
He was one of them, but like I said earlier, our commander was Jimmy Copeland. Here, he works here for Troy Cable. Jimmy's a wonderful guy, and our first sergeant was Lee Gardner. Don Jeffrey and his wife Betty were at the banquet or the reunion. Miss Kay Stinson was able to come. Jim Stinson was mobilized, and we lost Jim a couple of years ago. He passed away, but we invited Kay to come, and it was very emotional for her to see the guys, but we were real tickled to see her. And we've lost one other member of our unit. His name's Bill Stevens. He was from Louisville, and his wife Sandy still resides there in Louisville, Alabama. And but Bill and Jim Stinson, they're two special people, and we love those guys so much. And
this was before cell phones and internet, so you didn't get to talk to the home folks like the troops today, did you?
Rarely. None of this Skyping or anything like that. And letters were common.
Old-fashioned letters. And
one story I can remember. MREs, we got tired of eating MREs. And
that's meals ready to eat.
And so my job was to go I was the mess sergeant, so to speak. So I had to go and get 2 loaves of bread, got like 6 cases of water, We had 18 cans of soda pop and a bag of non-potable ice and about 2 cases of MREs each day. Well, somebody got the idea, let's stop at one of the convenience stores of Saudi Arabia, which we weren't supposed to stop at. Well, we bought pineapples and tomatoes and mayonnaise. So for lunch, with that bread, we started eating mayonnaise and pineapple sandwiches. Well, the MREs didn't have salt. Well, Bill Stevens somehow found us a way to eat at a nice military location that the Air Force had. He said, just walk in like you're supposed to be eating there, and we traveled to go eat. Well, there was a salt shaker and a pepper shaker on the table, so I just snatched the pepper shaker and put it in my pocket. I said, this is property of the United States government. We're going to take care of it at Cement City. We will protect this pepper shaker. So from then on, we could have pepper on our tomato sandwiches because there's not pepper in your MREs, or there weren't back then. But
these are war stories.
Well, we appreciate talking about it. Mike, what's going on your neck of the woods?
Yeah, I mean, the only time I've ever known about the National Guard getting called in was when they were having to go out in the woods to go get Rambo. And Rambo, was pretty tough to go get. And the National Guard said, I just signed up for this. So
I read that they might mobilize the National Guard in New York City because trash is piling up in the streets. I don't know if they're having a strike of the people that are supposed to pick up the trash, but it's becoming a big issue. That's talk about health issues, piling up trash, and they're talking about bringing the National Guard in to dispose of the trash.
That's going on right
all I read about yesterday was the South Alabama AD said that we're going to do everything we possibly can again to play the Troy game. So apparently South Alabama really wants to play Troy, so we'll find out if that happens on December the 12th, which I would love to see the game. I don't know if Troy will be in contention for a conference championship or South Alabama will be in contention for a conference championship. So it might be a situation they're going to have to move the championship game back to the 19th to be able to do that. So we'll see what happens.
I don't think Troy has an opening between now and December the 5th.
Well, it seems to me it's inevitable that other teams in the conference are going to have this same issue come up. So that will kind of be the make-good date, the default make-good date for all these teams that have to miss games. Because there are going to be other, outbreaks, I'm sure.
Also, I was reading an article yesterday that was a good article. What if the Alabama and Auburn fan base have to deal with a loss this early in the season? I mean, I don't see Alabama losing at home to Texas A&M, but I could definitely see Auburn losing to Georgia. Even though I don't think Georgia's great by any means, but I don't think Georgia played their best game against Arkansas. But can you imagine after 2 games if Auburn's 1-1 and Alabama's 1-1?
Right.
Well, that quarterback's eligible at Georgia now. The Daniels kid, whether or not he'll start, I'm not sure. He's
Well,
eligible
you got
to
to
play.
think he will, consider the other guy's a walk-on. The other guy's a pure freshman that looked absolutely horrible against Arkansas. Georgia's running game was non-existent against Arkansas, which
See,
surprising.
that's where that's a huge difference. Georgia always had running backs, but we were the other day. You're right.
Auburn, of course, lost Booby Whitlow. He ended up, getting kicked off the team, and I think he transferred to a 1AA school, but they were playing a freshman running back a lot against Kentucky that looked really good. But they didn't run the ball that well either. I thought Bo Nix was probably their best runner in that game. Auburn's going to have to find a way to run, though, to beat Georgia. A lot of people still think Georgia has the best defense in the SEC.
They look pretty good. I watched a fair amount of the game of Arkansas, and Georgia's defense did look good.
I mean, my big concern, I guess, would be Alabama. They look great. Of course, the first string looked great against Missouri, but I still think defensively, Alabama still gives up a lot of big plays on 3rd down. And I feel like Alabama will not be back defensively until they just, have a lot of 3 and outs. You don't see a lot of 3 and outs with Alabama's defense right now. You didn't see it last year at all, and you definitely didn't see it even the Missouri game, I didn't think.
Yeah. What worries me is that Texas A&M has a quarterback who's mobile that can run and pull it down, and on those 3rd downs, 3rd and 7, nobody's open, just take off and run, and it seems like that play is always open against Alabama.
Yeah, I saw that game in Tuscaloosa 2 years ago, and he could fly. I I mean, he really can. He rushed for 100 yards against Alabama in that game. Of course, Alabama had a lot better defense, but I mean, I still don't think he's good enough to beat Alabama. But for some reason, I think this game is going to be close on Saturday.
Okay. Alabama's what, 18-point favorite?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be demoralizing to the Alabama fan base, because a lot of Alabama people are upset and depressed anyway because of all the COVID restrictions on campus. And then you throw in a unexpected loss at home. That'll be depression city.
Of course, the last time that happened was when Johnny Manziel came into Tuscaloosa. I was at that game, and I'll never forget Alabama having the ball and just couldn't put it in the end zone at the end of the game. And then all the A&M fans and players celebrating after the end of the game. I mean, it was like they had won the national championship. Probably the biggest win Kevin Summerlin ever had as a head coach. Of course, he ended up getting fired and going to Arizona. But Johnny Manziel was something to watch in college football.
He was a great college football player. That's exactly right.
Such a fascinating story too. I mean, he's, you know, if you know his backstory, he's incredibly wealthy for a college football player. His family is, his dad. But he obviously has issues and mental health issues and maturity issues. Yeah.
Let's say Johnny Manziel was a spoiled, rotten friend.
Okay, yeah, I think so. I think it fits.
No, that's a good way to describe it.
So the West race now is what, Auburn, Mississippi State, and Alabama in the West?
Yeah, I think you're right, Forrest.
Well, I think A&M's going to win some games. I just don't know if they can win Saturday, but I think they'll play them close.
I still say he's the most overrated coach in the country. I can say it.
We couldn't hear what you said, but I'm going to say you said that Jimbo Fisher was overrated.
I'm pretty far away, but I had to go get another donut. I apologize.
He's going to get a donut.
This is laid back TV at its finest, right
Jack
here.
State at Florida State. Jacksonville State at Florida State.
What do you think, Forrest?
That's that special of the year.
I think Florida State might win, but good night. Florida State they got a long road to hoe. A lot of weeds in that garden.
I tell people, you know, all these arrogant Alabama fans that think Alabama's going to be on top of the world forever, this is what can happen. You can have these long years in the wilderness that you don't think are possible, but just ask Florida State or ask Nebraska. They're possible, aren't they?
Y'all heard it from here, and I'm making a prediction. Jacksonville State will beat Florida State. Jacksonville State of Jacksonville, Alabama will beat Florida State.
If they had the Jacksonville State team that almost beat Auburn, they would definitely beat them a couple of years ago.
I mean, if they would have had a punter, they would have won the game. Auburn got the ball back and put it in overtime, I think, when the punter kicked it like 30 yards for Jack State.
I knew Jack State was going to lose that game. Their quarterback was doing a little dance in the huddle. You know, thought they had the game won. And I said, buddy, y'all ain't won this game yet. And you know, 10 minutes later, they were behind.
I tell you what, they've got these are a bunch of guys that couldn't play in Division I-A because of certain circumstances. And Jacksonville will be loaded with athletes. In fact, their quarterback used to be the quarterback at Clemson.
Yeah, he never was the starter, but his name was Jared Cooper. He was a third-string quarterback at Clemson.
Who was the coach? Who was the coach at Jack State these days?
John Grosh used to be the head coach at Oxford High School and several other high schools.
How did Jack State do last year? Does anybody know? Were they pretty good?
They had their worst year in a long time last year. I think they went 6-6.
Okay.
What was it? 8-5 or 6-2? What was it?
I think they were 6-6 last year. They struggled last year.
Well, it would be quite a story if Jack State beat Florida State. That's for sure.
Did y'all watch any baseball yesterday?
Yeah, after you talked it up, I flipped over and watched the end of the Braves game. You know, it was historic. No game in the history of playoff baseball had ever gone longer with no runs scored. the Braves win 1-0 in the 13th inning, but it was 0-0 for 12 innings. And then I think they also set a record for most strikeouts in one batter striking. I think there were 36 times players struck out in that game.
Atlanta struck out 21 times.
But, yeah, I mean they could not find a way to get any base runners on. I mean Cincinnati had runners on the last 3 innings, the 10th, 11th, and the 12th. I think at one time they had first and third with nobody out, and the Braves still got out of it. It was incredible to watch. As a Braves fan, though, you got to feel good about things, because I didn't realize when I talked about this on the show, but they're only playing 3 games.
Right.
So if the Braves win today, they win the wild card.
Oh, I didn't realize that either.
Yeah. Houston advances, Tampa Bay advances, and the New York Yankees advance to the next round.
The Yankees came back and beat Cleveland, and Cleveland was the top seed. So that was very impressive by the Yankees.
Well, go Braves. Did you see those scenes? They don't let anybody in the stadium, but apparently fans gather just outside the stadium in some little plaza, and they must show the game on the big screen, because there was a big crowd of folks just outside the stadium. A lot of little kids after school having a good time, enjoying themselves.
I read where
it's an entertainment district over there. They call the Battery.
Yeah. The Major League Baseball will allow about 11,000 fans in the National League finals and in the World Series.
All right.
And that's going to be held at Ranger Park at Globe Life Field in Texas. Is that where they'll all be playing?
Oh, just in that one place, or all the venues?
Well, I think that's where they're going to play the World Series.
Well, the World Series will be we don't know where the World Series will be played, right? Or is it
unless they've determined it to be in that one location,
like the Super Bowl?
But for the American League Championship,
they picked a designated area. They're going to play it in Arlington, in Texas.
Yeah. But in the American League, Dodger Stadium over there, no fans.
Yeah, of course.
But in the National League Championship Series, they're going to allow 11,500 fans, and also at the World Series per game.
Well, good. I like
with
that.
Social distancing. And
who won the basketball game last night? Y'all know?
Well, the Lakers were up by 30 when I went to bed.
Yeah, they won.
Really?
Now, if they were the Atlanta Falcons, they probably would have lost.
So how many?
Yeah, I was seeing before.
That's the first game.
I was seeing before I went to bed. It was 85 to 55.
Golly.
And the best player.
Let me see what the final is. Let's see. The Lakers won 116 to 98.
Okay. So how many games do they have to win from now?
3 more.
You got to win 4.
Best of 7.
So that's a long series right there. They play again in Los Angeles, or where they play tonight?
Aren't they playing all in Orlando?
They're playing in Orlando, the bubble.
You know, I saw an
actual bubble.
I don't watch much NBA, but I saw an interesting stat. I did switch over and catch a couple minutes, and the graphic said that LeBron James is 3-6 in NBA Finals. So his teams have won 3 of them, but lost 6 of them. So that's not very impressive, really, when you compare him to Michael Jordan, who probably...
Is that his career? He's only won 3 championships?
Out of 9 tries. So if he wins this year, he'll at least go to 4 out of 10. He'll have a 40% batting average in the finals.
Yeah. People are claiming that he's the best player in the history of the game. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. I don't believe it, but some people claim it. I think most people would say no way, but yeah.
He's in the top 5. Top 5 probably.
He's the number 1 eye guy.
Eye guy?
Michael Jordan was pretty good.
It's all about me.
Kareem was really good. Magic Johnson was really good. Larry Bird was really good.
Bill Russell was really good.
Yeah.
Bill Russell won a lot of championships.
11.
Wilt Chamberlain was really, really good. I don't know. He didn't win a whole lot of championships.
1 or 2. I think he won 2.
Kobe and LeBron are about the same player, in my opinion. I think Kobe and LeBron are definitely in the top 5.
I read Kobe's biography after he passed away. I got interested in him, and He was a fascinating character. He was a competitor, buddy. I always watched. I enjoyed watching Kobe. I thought he was the closest player to Michael Jordan, the way he played, and just about any time just like Michael Jordan, anytime he wanted to get in the paint and take that ball to the hoop, he could do it. He was so athletic.
Well, they call him the Black Mamba because he was so vicious.
You know, he grew up in Italy, though. That was what was unique about Kobe. His dad played overseas. So
Joe Bryant played also.
I think Kobe spoke 3 or 4 different languages.
Yeah, he's interesting. He went to this elite private school when he moved back from Italy, for 1 or 2 years.
But if you ask him what college he went to, he said, no, I went straight from high school to the pros.
Yeah, it really hurt him. It didn't hurt him at all, did it?
I don't know how we missed this, Dad, but the NHL had their championship, and the Tampa Bay Lightning won. So all the hockey fans out there, sorry for today in LA not mentioning that the Tampa Bay Lightning won it all.
Wait a minute. You mean a team from Tampa, Florida won the hockey championship?
Yeah, they had 16,000 fans come out for the celebration.
I mean, in Tampa, Florida, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Needless to say, I don't follow hockey, but I did pick up this tidbit that of the Final Four teams in the playoffs, none of them were from Canada. So it was kind of strange.
I mean, hockey is very fun to watch. I used to go watch the minor leagues in Birmingham, the Birmingham Bulls, and a lot of the guys were like kind of retired or guys that I guess were not good enough to play in the NHL anymore. But man, it was fun to watch. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. You know something I'm ashamed on about this Thomas Donuts? I bought them at 6:30 this morning, and they're not. I believe they're day old. I believe they gave me day old donuts. I'm going to have to get them on that.
How many of them are left?
Wow, man, that's bad.
If they would have baked them at 6:30, they would still be hot. And these are a day old. I guarantee you. I'm gonna take them back and say, hey, I wanted fresh donuts.
Man, that's risky right there, man. They'll do away with you up there.
I know the operator. I say, hey, man, I wanted fresh donuts, and I promise you these have got to. If not, the box would have still been hot. Wouldn't you think?
Probably.
They're never hot. I've never had them hot there. It's not like Krispy Kreme or something.
Yeah, but I can say that they might have had some donuts left over from the night before. They might have just sold those to us this morning. I don't know. There's a bunch of people there. I know that.
Well, what I was going to mention
there's
too.
a lot of people down here.
But what I just read in the paper, when they have the American League Championship Series and the National League Championship Series, they'll play consecutive days. If they had to play 7 games, they'll play back to back days. And those days have already been set. And in the World Series, they're going to play on a Tuesday, a Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday if needed.
I bet
they're playing back to back.
I bet they set the location at.
It's in San Diego for the American League Championship Series.
They must have done that because of weather concerns. Because if a northern team was playing this late in the year, you would have big weather. You'd be playing a World Series and maybe frigid, even more. Although this is about when they play the World Series every year, right? I mean, the October Classic.
So that's kind of interesting. They're going to play in San Diego for the American League Championship. They're going to play in Arlington, Texas for the National League Championship. And World Series will be at Arlington, Texas.
Let me ask you this question. They're playing in Arlington. They're going to allow 11,000 fans. Are they even going to get 11,000 fans? I mean, what major league, you think where are the fans going to come from? If people in Arlington aren't going to care about these teams.
I bet you they will because they get to go somewhere.
Well, you might be right there.
They get to go watch a game, the World Series.
Let's say Atlanta's in it. Will 6,000 fans from Atlanta travel to Arlington?
Oh, yeah. I think definitely if they could get tickets. I mean, you're talking about a franchise that hadn't won a championship since 95. So what is that, 25 years? I think you definitely would have people travel.
Well, and then also you got fans of the team spread out all over the country. So it's like the last Major League Baseball game I went to was Boston versus Atlanta in the old Olympic Stadium, and I was stunned by how many Boston fans were at the Atlanta game. It was just almost as many as Atlanta fans.
It's like
Now we got some interesting news. You know, Alabama's new stadium capacity will be 100,077. The largest college football stadiums in the country. There's a top 10 list. Alabama is now number 7 on that list. Name the other 9 stadiums that are the largest in college football.
Well, the number one is the Big House at Michigan. I think they're what 211,000 or 13,000.
No, they wouldn't
No, they're 107,601.
Tennessee.
Well, 107. Okay, Texas A&M's over 100,000. LSU's over
That's right.
100,000.
That's right.
Ohio State's over 100,000.
That's right.
I'm about to run out of them, though, guys.
Penn State,
Penn State, yeah, Penn State's over 100,000.
LSU,
What about Tennessee?
Tennessee.
Yeah,
Tennessee's on the list. Hook 'em Horns.
that's it.
Texas.
Texas, Hook 'em Horns, and then
Texas over 100,000 now.
Auburn's playing in Athens.
Yeah, but it's
Sanford Stadium. Now, this is the top 10.
Okay, all right, put Georgia in there.
The top 10 largest stadiums in the country. Michigan is number 1. Penn State's number 2. Ohio State's number 3. Kyle Field at A&M is number 4. Neyland Stadium's number 5. Tiger Stadium is number 6, where LSU plays. Bryant-Denny is number 7. Darrell K. Royal Stadium is number 8. Sanford Stadium's number 9. And where UCLA plays is number 10, the Rose Bowl.
And so the first 7, they're over 100,000, and I bet at number 8, 9, and 10, starting with Texas, are under 100,000.
That is correct.
Well,
Can we pick them up, Steve?
Sanford Stadium is a very surprising stadium. You don't realize how big it is until you get in there. I was surprised when Troy played over there. I can't remember what year it was. We got beat 45-35, but I was
well, they'll have to drop off. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you something that a lot of you might not know. At one time, until they did away with the train, they used to have the railroad tracks that would come in the southern end zone. I mean, the railroad tracks, they had to live with that for a long time. They had to work the games around the schedule of the train. Finally, they got that changed, and I reckon it's been the last 10 years that Georgia's had the big stadium.
Well, those big stadiums and stadium expenses are things of the past, don't you think, in college football? I mean, this arms race to create bigger stadiums and plusher facilities with the economic condition in college football, that's
all right, now name
gone.
the largest stadium that does not is not over 100,000, but out of all the stadiums that are not a stadium for a winning program, can you name that? The big stadiums that don't have the winning program.
Rice plays in a huge old stadium. Don't they play in the old Cotton Bowl?
Sometimes I think your brain is hooked up to mine, Mike. Nobody would have picked that but you. Rice Stadium in Houston, in Dallas or Houston, I think, has the big stadium and doesn't have a very good team.
So they've never built one of these smaller stadiums. And I remember Tulane used to have a huge stadium because that's where they played the Sugar Bowl before the Superdome.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
Yeah, they built an on-campus stadium though several years ago.
That was the stadium where Alabama beat Arkansas for the national championship that year.
Yeah, Dad played in that stadium. I think they had about definitely over 80,000, maybe 90,000.
And I can also remember that when they put Joe Namath on quarantine.
When I was a kid,
When the hell did Joe Namath out
when I
on that Sugar Bowl day years ago? What was special about the game? Do y'all know? it snowed over a foot of snow that morning in New Orleans, and they played the game, the Sugar Bowl game, and the quarterback for Alabama was Steve Sloan, and he had never played quarterback before in a regular season game, but he started that game against Ole Miss, and Alabama had a goal line stand, and they beat Ole Miss that day without Joe Namath.
When I was a kid, when I saw Joe Namath with his white cleats, I got some white shoe polish and I painted my cleats white. And I remember our nickname was Joe Willie White Shoes.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love Joe
White
Willie
cleats.
too. You know, I've done a lot of research on college football when I thought I was